let's start off with home life. Did you have any, or where were you born?
I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Was that where you were raised?
I was raised, born, went to school there.
Did you have any siblings?
No siblings, only child.
No siblings. Was your father or mother in the war, or any military experience?
No, nobody else in the war. Uncles in the war. I had quite a few uncles that were in World War II.
In World War II. Was there a war actively going on when you joined the military?
No, there was no war going on.
Okay. What branch did you join the military?
I joined the U.S. Army. It started as a fluke. A friend of mine said, hey, let's get a free ride up to Cleveland and a free hotel overnight stay in Cleveland. So we got on the train in Erie, Pennsylvania, and had a free train ride up to Cleveland. And we took all these tests, and the next day they gave me a choice of US ASA or AIS, which is Army Intelligence Service or Army Security Agency. The only problem was they couldn't tell me what either service branch was. And so I said, fine. I signed up for Army Security Agency. And next thing I know, I was in the service. My friend was not in the service.
Why didn't your friend get in the service?
They didn't offer him anything.
Did you have to take a test then in order to figure
Well,
out?
these were all the tests. This was a day of testing. This was the end of the test.
Okay.
So I came home, told my parents I was going in the service. That's how I ended up in the Army.
Were they okay with it or sad?
They were kind of sad about it. I don't
see.
think they really wanted me to do that. I'd had a year and a half of college, and I think they really wanted me to keep on going. But
What were you in college for at the time?
chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering. Did that have any bearing at all on what you were going into the military for?
Well, at the time they also had a thing called the Pershing Rifles, which was like an ROTC program. So when I did get to Fort Dix, New Jersey, they made me a squad leader because of that Pershing Rifles, which really didn't mean anything too much, but I was a squad leader then too.
Okay. So
And also, they offered me officer candidate school then too. But there was a hitch there too, because if I didn't make it through officer candidate school, I no longer had Army Security Agency, and I could have ended up in infantry.
oh, well,
So I declined that then too.
okay. So what was your training did you have to go through, or where did you train?
Well, I ended up at Fort Gordon, Georgia in Signal Corps School.
Okay.
And I think that was probably like 9 weeks down there. And then at the end of that period, they pulled out the few people that were in ASA and said that you're either going to Manila in the Philippines, I think it was Ankara, Turkey, or Asmara, Ethiopia. I think those were the three choices at the time. They said if anybody wants to switch, go ahead. I don't think anybody really wanted to switch. You were pretty much stuck no matter where you were going.
Okay, and
when we got overseas, they said, okay, forget everything you learned in Signal Corps because it didn't pertain to what you were going to do. That was so much for the training.
so for the training, was it more boot camp style training, or did they give you any information because you were in information services, right?
Well, the Signal Corps training pertained to Army Signal Corps, and we did have some of that equipment, and some of that code breaking was in the Signal Corps. And so any messages that went to pertain to running the camp and stuff like that, that pertained to that. But anything for the mission for Army security, it had nothing to do with that. So that's so much for the training for that.
Okay. So you said you went to Eritrea?
I went to Asmara, Eritrea. At the time, it was Asmara, Ethiopia, because Eritrea was a protectorate of Ethiopia. And that was after World War II. As a matter of fact, they had a 30-year war, which started, I believe, in '62. Eritrea tried to separate from Ethiopia. And as I said, that lasted 30 years.
Okay.
But technically, it was Ethiopia when I was there.
All right. So when were you deployed exactly? Like what year?
I signed up in '62, and I was there for a year and a half in Ethiopia. I think it was, God, I don't remember. It would probably be August of '62. A year and a half later, I left Eritrea, Asmara, Eritrea. And then I spent a year in Vint Hill Farm Station in Warrington, Virginia. Then got out in '65.
65. Okay. So how was traveling to Eritrea or Ethiopia?
How was travel to?
Yeah.
Okay. I left, where was it, New Jersey. Flew MATS to Rhine-Main Air Force Base. We flew commercial, I think it was through France, then Zurich, then we flew to Greece, then we flew to, where was it? I'm trying to, Egypt. And I think I mentioned that we had something like 6 or 7 Egyptian military with automatic weapons. When we got off the plane, the military forgot to tell us with our orders to travel in civilian. And we were there in full dress uniforms, and they had their automatics on us. The stewardess got off the plane and tore into them. And they decided to open the gift shop up and let us walk from the plane to the gift shop. We spent an hour and a half there, escorted back to the plane, took off, and then we landed in the morning in Asmara, and that was it. It was pretty much. The first thing we noticed was the smell when we landed there. It had an entirely different smell when we landed in Africa. And you're 7,800 feet up. The plane actually had to fly above the clouds to land.
Oh.
But after a day or two, it seemed like the odor was gone. You were acclimated to it and everything. And they gave us 2 days just to wander around and get used to the air, or lack of air, almost 8,000 feet up.
Were the people there as hostile as they were in Egypt, or threatening?
Oh, no, the people there were nice. We had absolutely no problem with the people there. Nice people. Spent a year and a half with them, no problems. A lot of Italians. The Italians had pretty much taken over Eritrea since I think it was 1870. It was a colony of Italy. The Eritreans spoke English, Italian, and I guess it would be Amharic, which I didn't know any of. I also took Italian while I was over there. 3 semesters of that. That helped a lot. When they didn't speak English, you could get by with Italian. I had purchased a car with 3 guys. It was a, God, I can't remember, a Triumph Mayflower. 3 of us owned it. And anytime we went down off the hill, We had to keep stopping by streams and filling the radiator with water all the time because it kept leaking. And then I had a motorcycle when I was over there, and then I ended up buying a Fiat Balila and ended up bringing that back to the States. We drove on the wrong side of the road when we were over there in Eritrea. Ethiopia drove that way. I understand now that they drive on the right side of the road. But we got along quite well over there.
Now, you mentioned that you and three other people owned the car?
The first car.
The first car.
Three of us shared it. Then I sold my share, bought the motorcycle myself, and then bought the Fiat Balila myself.
Now, so did you have many close friends there?
Quite a few friends. Well, we worked shift work. We would work 5 days a week, and then we would have 2 days off. Then we would rotate shifts, switch to like second shift. Then we would have 2 days off. Then we'd rotate to third shift, 2 days off. Then we would rotate to days. Yeah, you just live with those guys. There was no inspections or anything because you never knew what the person next to you, what shift they were on. So they might be sleeping, going to another shift or something. So it was very good duty. All you did was go to work and off. We traveled whenever we were off. We were allowed to go anywhere we wanted to. They forgot to tell us to worry about any animals around there. I mean, you're in Africa. I think it was the third week we were there, we were chasing animals down the road one time. We found out later it was like 25 or 30 baboons. We didn't realize how big baboons were until a few days later we were in a museum and found out they were like 4 foot tall and how big their teeth were. So it was probably a good thing we didn't chase or catch them. One time we were probably about 50 miles away and we ran into some anthills that were probably 10 feet high and stuff. And luckily we didn't disturb them, stuff like that. Nobody ever told us what to do or not to do. We were in the Sudan. We didn't realize how crazy those people are in the Sudan, stuff like that. We took some side trips down to Lake Tana, the beginning of I think that's the Blue Nile. We went to the baths of the Queen of Sheba. We saw a castle that was supposedly had the mortar made out of ground up eggshells from ostrich eggs, different things like that. Well, for a year and a half we just did stuff and nobody told us we weren't supposed to do or not do stuff.
So you were just allowed to travel whenever you had time?
Oh yeah, as long as we reported for duty. That was it.
So did you have a lot of times off? Did you have vacations or weekends?
The time off varied. As I said, if you got off on second, you had 2 days off. So that basically gave you 2.5 days off because you had, suppose you got off on a Friday. Well, if you were getting off on days, if you got off on days, say 3:30, you had that evening off, you had Saturday and Sunday, and then you didn't have to report until second on Monday, so you had a long period of time. But then, depending on what days you got off, it would be a short period of time from second to when you were going on midnights.
Yeah, yeah.
So it varied how much time you had off. It worked out well. Plus, the base also had a swimming pool. It had bowling alleys. It had cinema.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that was on base.
What kind of videos or movies did they show at the cinema?
They were pretty simple movies. We had a chaplain that even the Disney movies he censored.
Really?
Yeah, even Annette Funicello in the beach movies, he would censor those. So
How would he censor a Disney movie? Like,
he
what would you
would
censor?
them. And there was one time for a week and a half that he would take a tour of the Holy Land, and people could take vacation or leave, I should say, and go to the Holy Land, and the service clubs would kind of go wild for that week and a half. So, and we did have really good service club. We had an officers club, an NCO club, and a enlisted man's club, and everything was very inexpensive there. As a matter of fact, most people ate their food there. The food was very cheap. We had a mess hall. Not a lot of people ate there, really.
What kind of food did you have to eat there? Was it more army rations or?
Oh no, there was no such thing as army rations there.
No?
It was just like eating in a cafeteria, really. Matter of fact, we went to the service club, and on a long weekend, went to the service club and bought steaks and stuff and took them down to Massawa. Now Massawa is the seaport on the Red Sea, and it's probably 35 miles away as the crow flies, but you are going down almost 8,000 feet to sea level. And the curves are very dangerous, hairpin curves. And we went down there and took the steaks and cooked out on the beach and everything. You'd be laying on the beach, and all of a sudden a camel herd would come by, or camel train or whatever. And that was a lot of fun too, because some guys got cut on coral.
Oh.
You had to watch out for sharks. What else? Camel fleas. We had a couple guys hospitalized for camel flea bites.
Ooh.
And then they had old, from World War II, there were German submarine pens there. You could explore through that. And Massawa had the hottest average mean temperature of any other seaport in the world. So it was hottest there all year round. And if you went swimming there, you couldn't sink. They had so much salt there that you would come out, you'd be crusted with salt. And the people there, natives, would go out and build these dams of mud at low tide. High tide would come in over these dams of mud, then the water would go out, and then they could actually go out and scoop up the salt. And that's the way they got salt. It was that plentiful there. But that was kind of interesting there too. I mean, it was neat. And they had 2 rainy seasons. One would last 2 weeks, one would last 3 weeks. And it would probably last maybe an hour or 2 hours a day. It would rain, and that would be the end of it. The average temperature all year round was 72 degrees. And if you walked to the edge of the plateau, you could just overlook all the clouds because you were above the clouds. Sometimes wonder if that's not where I got the skin cancer on my nose, because there was no clouds to filter out the sun.
Mm-hmm. So, what exactly did you do there? What was your job?
Okay, there was a communications site there. It's no longer there. We were a major relay station, probably one of the biggest in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. I really can't tell you too much about what went on there, but that's really about all I can tell you about what went on there.
So, you said that you were there when Kennedy was?
Yeah, when Kennedy got killed, and it seems like everybody in the States remembers when it happened, and we got the message, we were shocked, but it's not as if I can remember when it happened or anything like that, because we went to work and we got off work, and after a year and a half, it just seemed like one day was the same as the next day. And really, we had all this machinery going. We played cards when it was kind of boring and stuff. And it was just like one day ran into the next day, to the next day, to the next day. And it really wasn't that exciting as far as what we were doing or anything. So.
But you were decoding messages all the time, or?
I can't really say too much about that.
So, even though you can't say like what you were decoding, how would you go about decoding messages? Or can you not talk about that?
I really can't say that either.
Oh, so it wasn't machines, or you can't say it either way. Okay.
We had a lot of machinery, and that's about all I can say. We had a radio blasting all the time too, to overcome a lot of the noise, and that's about it.
So if it was that classified, did you have to be able to destroy the machines, or?
Oh, we did have, I can tell you that much, that we had, at that time, it was probably high tech, it's low tech now, we had these big packages of some kind of explosives, I guess, or heat, I should say. We'd plug them in and they were supposed to melt all the equipment. But, and we did have weapons ready then too, and we were in the center of the communication center, but that was nothing real big either. As I said, we were pretty low tech as far as ammunitions and stuff like that. That was not part of what we did. But we were part of NSA at the time. And matter of fact, one thing I did miss out on though is my personal MOS. Everybody else in the communication center got to make E5. I only made it to E4 because we got hard stripes, which would be sergeant stripes, but they were all going to Vietnam because Vietnam has started up after I got over there. And they did offer me hard stripes if I would stay for 3 more months. And I said no, after a year and a half I was going back to the States. And I did have an option to go work for NSA. And I said no, I've had enough of all this too. I'm not going to do any more of this trick work of working days and then nights and then evenings and everything. I said I am going home after all this. So. And I still wonder if that wasn't a mistake not to do that, to be honest. But.
So you said you heard about Kennedy pretty fast. How did you get information, or how were you able to communicate with home?
With home?
Yeah.
Just phone calls, mail.
Phone calls, mail. Did the mail come in really regularly, or was it sporadic?
No, it was pretty regularly. As a matter of fact, I started dating my wife, your grandmother, then, and I would just show up. She'd find me in the morning sitting in my car sleeping in front of her house. That was about it. I mean, I would get off work and take off and head for home. If it was a long weekend, 2 out of 3 weekends I could make it home and back for a day. But that was about it. So I was home pretty often.
So you started dating while in service?
But when I was overseas, there was very little communications back and forth.
Okay.
But we did have teletype then, and I could talk back and forth on teletype among some of the friends I had, which was pretty high tech then, but which is pretty slow nowadays. And I could teletype to some of the friends that I had been in school with, and that was pretty cool too.
Okay. So, when you returned home, what was your reception like? You said you got a girlfriend, your family?
That was about it. My girlfriend was waiting for me. Actually, my girlfriend wasn't waiting for me when I got back from overseas. She was waiting, but she also had a boyfriend at the time.
Ooh.
But that was no big thing. But that was after a year and a half too. But after I got back and I was down at Bent Hill Farm Station, as I said, when I got out of the service, that was, I had been dating your grandmother then, and she flew down and met me, and we drove home together. But that was about it. There was no big deal then either.
Okay. And what did you end up going into after that? Like, what was your civilian job?
Actually, a friend of mine asked me to go to work for a finance company, and that's how I ended up going to Ohio. And I did that. And then I quit that and ended up going to, what do you call it, a manufacturing plant, and that's how I ended up being in purchasing.
Did you ever finish your college degree?
College? No. Your grandmother got pregnant, and I decided after 11 years, I went in and took a physics class. And I think after 11 years of being out of school and taking a physics class was the wrong thing to do, especially when your grandmother was pregnant at the time. And in the middle of the physics class is when she delivered her first baby too. So it was just a wrong time to take a class like that.
Did you learn any good lessons from that experience in the Army?
From the Army?
Like anything that stuck with you on how to live your everyday life, or?
I don't know. I think there's some small things about, finishing the job and everything, yes, and sticking with something. Definitely. It probably gave me some other opportunities. I could have gone to work with UPS, and I should have taken that job. They wanted me in management after they found out what I had done. I could have gotten a job right away. Matter of fact, they called me 5 or 6 times. And I turned that job down. I regret that job too. That would have been a perfect fit for me. And then the VA also goofed me up on my hearing because of that too. But that's another story too. But I'm not sorry I did it. I'm really not.
Now, is there anything you want to tell the class, or any words you would like to give them? Inspirational quotes?
The class?
Or just anyone in general from my generation?
I really think it helped me grow up. I think at the time I was not ready to finish school, to be honest. And I think that I probably, after I get out of the service, I probably should have gone right back to school. And I had a couple opportunities that I probably should have taken at the time too, and I'm sorry I didn't take. I probably should have taken the OCS. I probably should have taken the NSA job. I probably should have taken the management job with UPS. But I think in all 3 categories, I maybe was afraid to take the opportunity that was given to me too. And maybe I should have taken the leap at the time,
So we're right around Memorial Day, and when everyone says remember the veterans, what do you think that means to you? Like, how do you want them to be
not
remembered?
as much to me as it does to the guys that I think that really were in the trenches more. I think I had it pretty easy, to be honest. And I was lucky because I went in before Vietnam. I feel sorry for the guys that ended up in Vietnam. And I have a lot of respect for those guys. And when I run into some of those guys, I really feel honored to run into them. I really do.
Yeah.
I had it easy.
So what would you say to one of those guys if you ran into them?
Oh, I really do thank them for what they went through. I really do.
Okay. And I think we'll just finish it off. Can you just show me some of the stuff you have with you?
Oh, well, I got a hat with that. I have a flag with Haile Selassie, who they really ended up deposing. And I bought this for you, for my car.
Here, let's hold that up a little bit higher. And a little lower.
A little lower, huh? That way, that way,
Huh?
that
A little
way.
bit more.
There,
A little that way. Just a little bit. Over your face. Just cover your face.
there
A
you
little
go.
down. Good. Alright. Tell me what that is.
Huh?
So is that your license plate from when you were in Ethiopia?
That's from that Fiat Balila,
Yeah?
one of two.
One of two.
It's probably a collector's item.
Alright, very nice. Thank you, Grandpa.
There you go. Clean it up.
Thank you.